All
Great.
right, finally.
Instagram likes both of us again.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a conversation that I'm personally very excited about. So I'm sure everybody who's logged in as well has plenty of questions. I will just very quickly get us started. I've been talking a little bit about the Brand Bangalore initiative, about your prior experience in the domain as well. But I'll just very quickly just share some sort of topics that we're going to be going through and then dive into the questions. But for everyone joining us today, this is a very exciting conversation. I'm sure there's going to be a lot to learn on urban governance in general, on cities, on our role that we play in it as citizens. So we have with us Srinivas, who's, like I was mentioning, an expert in the domain, has made that transition from being active citizen to being full-time committed member of the brigade of thinking about change. And we have a lot of interesting questions posed today. But I do want to encourage everybody to also use the comment section to post your own questions and your own thoughts and comments, and we will take them as time goes on. So with that, thank you for joining us, and I'd like to get started. Srinivas, I think just to start with, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your relationship with the city?
Wow, a relationship with the city sounds very interesting. I have a very deep romantic relationship. And I'm in love with Bangalore. I think I can say that without any hesitation. I wasn't born or brought up here. I moved here about 18 years ago, but I've been, I think the city has that magical charm that sucks you in, and, I can't imagine being anywhere else. Uh, Little going back academically, I'm yet another computer science kind of a person. Did my masters, all that stuff. Worked in Silicon Valley for a few years, then moved back to Bangalore, and with a great interest in joining the local politics. Those days, I used to think rather naively that political reform is the only way forward, and we all need to do something about it. So been part of a political party. It was called Lok Satta Party. It doesn't really exist anymore, but we are one of those alternate political platform kind of people. All that while I held my software day job to keep the lights on and send kids to school. But about a few years later, I became more of an activist, like you were describing, with a focus on two things: sustainable mobility, public transport, and such, and then there is decentralized local governance. I'm a strong believer in decentralization and citizen participation. So those are the two biggest areas for me, and I felt that I need to jump in full force. And I discovered this whole world called development sector. Some people call it NGO, some people call it social sector. I discovered that this is an area where I can pursue my dreams and passions and try to bring my own skills to the table. So 3 years ago, I kind of quit my software profession altogether and joined an NGO called Janagraha. I've been there about 2.5, 3 years, and recently I've now joined an organization called WRI India, World Resources Institute. It's a global organization working on climate change, mobility, cities, many, many things. So quite exciting to be part of this, sector or domain, if you will.
Excellent. I'm so glad, and I hope that passion is infectious, and we see a lot more people falling in love with the cities that they grew up in, or the ones that they were adopted by. I think, Srinivas, I had a question for you to get started on the Brand Bangalore initiative itself. Now, the stated initiative or the stated objective of the initiative is to improve infrastructure and governance in the city. I want to start with a little bit of a tough question to say which is needed more in Bangalore, and if you could tell us why.
Governance wins, 100 to 10. We have to, infrastructure is not the issue. Infrastructure, the problem is that we focus too much of infrastructure. If you ask me, that in my humble opinion, infrastructure is needed. There's no doubt about it. But building infrastructure without governance is like building a house without a foundation. You need a strong foundation, so you need the governance structure. So if you want the infrastructure to stand and actually be built in a way that people need it. For example, a lot of people think, we spend thousands of crores on flyovers and roads and all of that. but how much percentage of our public uses them, right? It's a very small percentage. For most people, that infrastructure is of no use really. It can be of some use, they do use it, but not like the way that the rest of us can use it for our personal vehicles or private vehicles. So it's a public policy decision to be made. If you have X amount of rupees to spend, how do you spend it? So, and who spends it and who is accountable for that spend? All of these questions have answers in governance, not in infrastructure. So therefore, governance goes first, and further down the list, transparency, accountability, all of that, participation, then infrastructure. So I look at it that way.
Absolutely. And I think that's a very interesting point that you have made about the foundation and the rest of the house, because oftentimes we might have what people like to call world-class infrastructure, right? Built and highways and everything is world class. But at the end of the day, if that was not planned properly, if it was not taken into account, have floods, and that's just the way that the way that the world works. So I think that was a really interesting answer. I feel like another question that I have in similar vein is that how does an initiative such as this? So there is a Brand Bengaluru initiative. And within that, there are different domains that the government is seeking public input on. How does it actually fit in with the existing planning initiatives in the city? So we already have master plans, have different kinds of city and urban development plans. How would an initiative like this fit with all of those?
Yeah, so I am a bit of in two minds about it. On one hand, as a evangelist for decentralized governance and citizen participation, I believe that all the existing structures, it's not the lack of structures that we have problem with, right? We do have a structure. We do have a 74th Amendment and all of that stuff. You mentioned master plan. There is various budgets, all kinds of things are instruments that actually already talk about citizen participation and getting OIs of the common citizen into the planning process. That on paper it all exists. So you could argue that you don't need any Brand Bengaluru or any such initiative to understand what citizens want. You can argue that it's already known because there's so many media stories, so much of angst on social media, and every other active citizen I know, I've already written 10 letters to all different political parties and participated in the manifestos and all of that. If you look at our manifestos in the last assembly election, we just had a assembly election, right? I must say that this time all the parties, the two major parties and even JDS, Congress, BJP and JDS, all of them engage citizens at a very deep level. They held numerous meetings asking citizens to come forward and give them inputs on what should be in their manifesto that they will deliver if they get elected. Now think about it for a second. They're seeking public input to put things in the manifesto that they promise to deliver. This is the goodness of democracy. This is how it should be, right? This is in Bangalore. It's been happening in the last couple of election cycles. This time it went even further. There's numerous meetings. Apartment Federation invites parties invite RWAs and active citizens. All of us were very busy in the election season. We were invited to so many meetings, right? And we give input, and as a result, the manifesto is a very long manifesto with hundreds of bullet points. You can read it, and many of the manifesto looks like copy paste from documents submitted to them because due to lack of time and so on. All parties have a manifesto committee with very wonderful people actually working towards it. Working in politics, one thing I realized is that there are wonderful people in our political parties, always, progressive, looking forward to doing the right thing and understanding what the citizens are saying. It's just that the noise to signal levels are so high that we tend to, look at politics as dirty or boring or not interested in governance. It's not true. This is something I want to say to all the young people listening to your show, is that, there are a lot of great people in politics. Even the politician that has a really terrible image as corrupt or this or that also understands governance better than most of us, right? Because of simple fact that they have to get elected, they have to engage with citizens on a day-to-day basis. They know a lot of stuff. Whether they're in the right direction, whether they're building a flyover versus public transport is a debatable question, but what is needed is something they know. So going back to your question, Brand Bengaluru is an initiative because we have a situation where there is no city government. The city government of Bengaluru doesn't exist. That's called the BBMP. When I say city government, a lot of people wondering what is city government. We have the union government, we have state government. What is city government? We don't even use that phrase. We call it municipal corporation, municipality, and slightly less, a bit derogatory, or don't give that importance that we need to give. So because of that, initiative like Brand Bengaluru appear like there's some new government has come in, so they're trying to do something. Actually, they don't. The new government, what it should have done is actually held elections for the city government, which then the mayor would come in, corporators would come in, and they can do Brand Bengaluru. Or that's the only thing they need to do. Government of Bengaluru should work on Brand Bengaluru. What else will it work on, right? But here we have the state government. This is a state government initiative. Please, note this, right? Brand Bengaluru is the initiative of the Deputy Chief Minister, who is also in charge of the Bengaluru city, which itself is an anomaly in our governance. You don't have a minister for, say, Hubli, or you don't have a minister for Nagpur, or things like that, right? You have a mayor for Nagpur, mayor for Mumbai, mayor for Kolkata. Where is the minister? How many cities do we have? Do we have that many ministers? That ministers are supposed to be per state. Leave that aside. That can be a little confusing. The goodness of Brand Bengaluru is that Bengaluru is governed by not one but so many agencies. There is electricity coming from BESCOM, water coming from BWSSB. The municipal governance, the roads and the potholes are not potholes, the roads and footpaths and garbage management is done by the BBMP. So there isn't one agency or organization or a head that is responsible for all things Bengaluru. So Brand Bengaluru in that sense helps in consolidating the input coming from all of this. And the most famous two words that we use, to talk about urban governance in India is lack of political will, right? The political will. We all know the solutions. We know how to fix garbage. Every city knows how to fix the flooding, how to fix the lakes, how to fix footpaths. We all know that. There are too many experts and too much of knowledge within the departments. It's the lack of political will that's the problem. So Brand Bengaluru demonstrates political will. So that's why I like it, because it comes right from the top at a very highest level of politics. Meaning the Deputy Chief Minister in the state of Karnataka, who has taken it upon himself to do this. And what I really like about Brand Bengaluru, I started with a very negative opinion about it. But then I realized, and then I started getting invites to meetings where different teams or institutes like the Indian Institute of Science, IISc and MS Ramaya, held a meeting last 2 weeks ago, where the Brand Bengaluru inputs related to mobility are given to them, IISc and Ramaya. Now they are supposed to analyze that, present it to a bunch of us, and then we look at what the citizens are saying, add our own comment to it. At the end of that, IISc and Ramaya just yesterday submitted a report back to the Deputy Chief Minister and the government saying, here is the Brand Bengaluru input on mobility. We analyzed the input. We had a consultation with 20-30 people, people like us that are involved in more public work. And because the general input you get on the website can be quite boring. For example, they got 10,000 inputs. Only 5,000 were valid. 5,000 are like one word, duplicates, all of that stuff, right? And then free text. How do you analyze text like this, right? I want this. I want a flyover. How do you know what that means? Where? Which flyover? What a problem are you trying? So you get a lot of eager citizens wanting to contribute. So you can't discard it also. So they did a lot of textual analysis, AI, all kinds of things were done. And I'm glad that now there is a report with the government, a wonderful report. Professor Ashish Verma, who heads the sustainability lab in IISc Civil Engineering Department, has submitted that on behalf of all of us, right? So I think now that makes a lot more sense to me. Now what happens is that, does this report become actionable to different departments or not? Who is going to follow up? That's where we have a problem, because there's no mayor, there's no corporators. So we have to see how it goes. But in terms of engaging citizens, I was sitting across the table from the Deputy Chief Minister. 100 of us were sitting. All of us active citizens, RWA types, all of us were sitting, and he sat there patiently for 2 hours. And it was open online on Zoom as well. And hundreds of people joined online. It happened in Vidhan Sauda. So I felt very empowered at that moment. Whatever the outcomes might be, that you as a common ordinary citizens are sitting in the highest seat of power, the Vidhan Sauda, sitting across the Deputy Chief Minister and all the Commissioner of Bengaluru City and all his officers, everyone was sitting right there. And, patiently they heard all of these comments. And usually what happens is, in such people get overexcited and they repeat the same things, or they make it very personal. There's a dog next to my house. They don't realize that we're talking about a citywide issue. It's natural. And yet patiently they heard all that. So long answer, but there you have it. I think it's important. I think it can be done better. It should be done through the existing systems. About my work on ward committees, things like that. But nevertheless, when the government changes an initiative like this, puts new energy into the city.
Absolutely. Okay, excellent. I think Sneha underscore Priya, similar question about who implements these initiatives if there is no elected representation in the state. So thank you for answering that as well. I think one of the things that I have two follow-up questions that come to mind from what you just shared. But one of the things that I feel I would love to go a little bit deeper into is your work specifically on the existing citizen engagement platforms in the city. It could be Ward Sabha, it could be any different infrastructure that has been gained through the constitutional amendments into the structure of a city. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how that fares with initiatives such as Brand Bengaluru, and also just to hear your thoughts on how Bangalore fares on those parameters as compared to other Indian cities.
Yeah, the joke is that if you throw a stone, it will hit a software engineer in Bangalore, right? The new joke is that if you throw a stone, it will hit an activist or a civic, active citizen, right? They're everywhere. They're everywhere. WhatsApp has completely democratized, local governance in the sense that you meet your neighbors, you are in a live-in apartment community or anything. There are a bunch of people trying to work together to get common public interest done. Sometimes it's selfish, my area, my street. Sometimes it is general goodness, public goodness. So we have a lot of that. And ward committees are the most beautiful mechanisms that our constitution gives us. Unfortunately, most people in this country have not experienced it, other than maybe in places like Kerala and to some extent West Bengal. But Bengaluru has been trying to get ward committees going for 10, 15, 20 years. So many court cases happen, all of that. Long story short, from 2019 onwards, we've been running ward committees in Bengaluru. We're very thrilled about it. I think if you ask me what's the biggest thing that I've done in the city, other than the steel flyover beta and such mobilization campaigns, ward committees is much bigger. For the same reason I started with the foundation. Ward committee is a foundation on which you can do a lot of things with, whether it's mobility or garbage or something else. So we have that. But then we had COVID. And when COVID happened, the ward committees have become even more stronger because suddenly the people in politics and government realized that ward committees are very useful to reach out to citizens, to create those, what were those things we had, the local centers when we had to keep people in isolation. I forgot the name of the thing now, but triage centers, vaccination, testing, all of these things can be done in a decentralized manner. Antara, you know this. You can't do these things centrally. If you remember, when COVID began, the government of India used to release Kerala red, Karnataka blue, Gujarat white, whatever color coding. And then the state government said, please don't give us color coding. We will give our own color coding because you don't know what's happening in our state. And you know what happened after that? The districts told the state government, capital, please, you don't give a color code to our district. We know how to give our color code. How many cases are there? It went down to the city and ward. It goes at a ward level. So if you know at a ward level how many people have symptoms, how many people have fever, then you know how to deploy, right? It's a very basic governance concept, principle of subsidiarity for those of you that are public policy enthusiasts. Principle of subsidiarity is equal to decentralization. And therefore, we have that. Now, after that, what happened? We had the elections coming and ward committees. We had ward committees once a month. Okay, get this. Because of COVID, it became twice a month. We had more ward committee meetings. In the year 2021, we had 4,000 ward committee meetings in Bengaluru. Everywhere, right? With all departments. Why is ward committee so powerful? Because it brings officials from different departments into one table, one room, which you cannot find otherwise. You have to go to different people for different things. Everyone have their own phone number and a website to file complaint. Ward committee kills all that. Everyone has to sit together in one place. We had that. But slowly it's been diluted because of the assembly elections. They put a hold on it. All the officials got busy in the election work. And post-elections, we started the ward committees, but it's not happening much. My personal opinion is that the Brand Bengaluru initiative should have said that all the ward committees should have hold a consultation on brand Bengaluru. It doesn't make sense for 100 of us to go to Vidhan Sabha. There are thousands of us, right? So each of us go to each of our ward committee and have a brand Bengaluru discussion there. That would have been much better than a few people with known names. Somebody in the government knows who I am. I have my phone number, therefore I get invited. But that's not really fair. You see, somebody else who's doing a lot of work may not be known to people. But if you do it at a ward level, you will actually get the real people that are working. At some point, we tend to become talking heads and less of, rolling up our sleeves and working. I'm one of those because I work on city level now. I'm not working in my own ward, though I live here, right? Because of my other commitments and priorities. So that's what they should have integrated the ward committee with the brand Bengaluru. That did happen.
Interesting. Right. Okay. I think, Srinivas, one more question building on a comment that we have from Sumit in the chat as well, is that sometimes when you look at Brand Bengaluru or you look at the Smart Cities mission, these are really sort of overarching messaging to signal overhaul. So that messaging might get some funds for the city, it might get some interest in the city. I think Sumit's question was along similar lines to ask, how does this political messaging sort of interplay with the progress that you see on the ground? Just wanted to get your perspective on that as well.
It's a very interesting question. Political messaging is very important because that is like, in our democratic system, there is no direct relation between the elections and the outcomes, right? Elections happen and then governance happens. Generally, there is no connection. But more and more in cities like Bengaluru, because of media, print media and social media and people like you and many others, there is a strong accountability model taking shape, in my opinion. I think this needs further research and study and how this informal accountability works, right? Formal accountability means elections, corporators, ward committees, things like that. Informal accountability is you made a promise, now somebody is holding the mirror to you. All of us that gave input to the manifesto, we are going back to them and saying, hey, your line item says you will increase the modal share of Bengaluru public transport from 50 to 70%. Now, Metro is coming to Whitefield and Electronic City. It's a great opportunity to increase modal share of public transport. More people should go on public transport. So we started a campaign called Personal to Public. I took this exact message to Professor Rajiv Gowda and the Brand Bengaluru committee. He's one of the Brand Bengaluru. He said, yeah, absolutely. Let's make this a government program. And as of today, just a couple of hours ago, I come out of a meeting where you had the BMTC, the BMRCL, the BBMP and the police, traffic police, all of us discussing how Bengaluru can support public transport and get more people into public transport. This is a loop, in my view. This loop began input going to the political party manifesto and Brand Bengaluru. If you see the statement of Brand Bengaluru, the second sentence says integrated, sustainable, multimodal public transport. That's what Brand Bengaluru says. So I use their own line to them to reach out to them and say, hey, this is what we are also saying. Can we work on it? So I think this is the model. This is the secret now that everyone should know and milk it, right? So now, what else did they promise? Are you working on that? So when the secret is to create win-win scenarios. When you work on things that are aligned to their interests, then there is a magic is going to happen. If you want the sun and the moon and the most beautiful thing, but that's not of interest to those in the political office, then it's not going to go anywhere, right? They're going to ignore you. Unless you stand 8,000 people on a human chain, like we did for the street fire, then the message will be conveyed. But that's too difficult and expensive. It takes a lot of energy to get so many people out on the street and all that. And having done that and having done this, I prefer this.
Excellent. Okay, great. So we have two questions in the chat. And I think I have just one final question building on the very interesting point that you just made about what tools are in the citizens' toolbox. But I think just to take Sneha Priya's question, they ask, is the Brand Bengaluru initiative only looking at implementation challenges, or is the initiative also looking at bringing long-term changes to municipal laws? In the same vein, we have another question saying, do you see the Brand Bengaluru influencing municipal budgets, especially for climate action interventions? So since both link a little closely to existing governance structures, if you'd like to take that on.
Not directly, indirectly it will, but these things don't generally have a connection with each other. The budgets happen the way it is. It's a huge flaw in the way money is given to the cities. It's unfortunate that cities are the generators of money, not just for the state, but for the country. India runs on Bengaluru tax money. Every time somebody buys a packet of Lace chips in Bengaluru, union government is getting some money, state government is getting some money. But what do we get back? Almost nothing. I've written a lot about it. It's a topic that's very frustrating and very important, and I wish more people spend time on it. But no, these guys don't do it. The way they do it is, oh, Brand Bengaluru said do this, so we are giving 100 crores for this. As if it's like a king is giving some gift to one person who sang a nice, wrote a nice story or sang a nice poem or something like that. That's completely not the right way of doing it. What you need to do is systematic dispersal of funds. Money comes from citizens, money needs to go back to citizens. No CM or PM owns any of our money. It's all our money only. We just put them in a temporarily in an office to take care of our affairs for a period of time. And they seem to forget that and seem to give money to whatever they seem to like. Right. And this model happens because our political system is a bit twisted. My answer is no, it's not going to make any long-term effect. It will bring focus to climate action because a lot of people have complained about that, have written about that. It will bring focus to public transport. I just gave you the example. Whether it will bring a lot of new money, I doubt it.
Thank you for that. I think we're at time, so I have one last question to ask you. Two things that I picked up as part of the work that we do at Civis. I often refer to a citizen like toolbox almost, right? As a citizen, we have different tools: RTI, voting, public consultation, etc. However, as we use some of those tools, I've heard you talk about two things in specific in the past half an hour that we have been chatting. One, to be community minded, so not to always have representing only your own interests, but to think from a larger perspective. And the second one, to be active. And to continue to engage with the system, to use their language back at them, and perhaps use those tools for accountability. Would you have one or two more strategies for active citizens around us, those who have joined this meeting as well, about how best to use these tools that we have?
Yeah, so the language that all politicians understand is numbers. Okay, so we need to understand that. We need to understand their language. So therefore, numbers are very important. So if you have any cause that is close to your heart, you find like-minded people. You join WhatsApp groups, Telegram groups, Facebook groups, whatever you call it. So in numbers, you have two things. One, your demand will be amplified. Two, you will be safe and your demand will be democratic and it will catch the attention of the print media. The biggest tool that we have to get anything done in our city is print media. Though a lot of young people I know don't read papers these days, but you must. And print media is actually saving democracy in India in many ways, in larger spirit of things and in an urban governance setup. You open any local newspaper, page 2, page 3 is full of potholes, accidents, garbage, all of that. You go to any mayor's office or commissioner's office, you sit in their waiting area, you will see the officials, the assistants and secretaries marking all those news items with a red marker. And that's how they take up things and go. So you do things in a way that it catches the media's attention and then it goes to the government system that there is. But it's a very minor thing in the grand scheme of things. If you want to change the city climate action, this is not that method. I'm just giving the entry point kind of things, right? And always work with others, right? The social media and the internet has given us an enormous power to understand who are our allies, right? And who are the people that support this. Why did 8,000 people come to say steel flyover Beda? Some of them are against the flyover. Some of them are for public transport. Some of them cannot imagine one tree being cut. They're tree lovers, green activists. all of them came together for different reasons, but the voice got amplified, right? So if your cause is big, if your demand is big, then you need that kind of numbers. And numbers doesn't mean thousands and hundreds of people. The ward committees that we got, instituted in Bengaluru, some 20 of us from citizens of Bengaluru stood in front of the BBMP office with a placard. We want ward committees. And when did we stand there? On the day that they were having their monthly meeting. So 198 corporators came, in their white Fortuners. Almost all of them are white Fortuners. Okay, they come out, they climb the steps. You say monthly order. So they will say, what is this? They want to get into a conversation. They went in, and I'm adding some drama to it, and passed the resolution that Bengaluru will now have ward committees. That's it. 15, 20 people got it done. I mean, not that everything got done on that day, but that particular event has helped push it forward, right? So you need to know the rhythm and the language to it and all that. Work with people, and that's the other thing I do. And nowadays, the entry point is all these apps or tools or phone numbers to keep filing issues, right? If you post on Twitter, you tag the right people, it gets amplified, it gets solved. There is no bigger happiness than solving some local problem. You get to that, first ring, so to speak. You get your badge of honor, and then there's no stopping you. You can go as far as you can. And the more you do such things, the more confidence you get, and the more people you discover, the more busy you'll get on Saturday and Sunday, because you'll be going to various events and meetings. And nowadays, a lot of that happens online, so you don't have to, travel much also. So all of these are the tools that are available today. So we live in a very exciting time, Santara, and you look at your platform, what it's trying to do in terms of creating that, governance or understanding of politics in young people and all of that. We have all of these platforms and channels. So I feel very optimistic and hopeful. And even the politicians, the new breed of politicians come in, the corporators or councillors are really good, because unlike MLAs and MPs, every day they have to come face to face with citizens. This is why I want the corporators back, because they cannot escape. You cannot see MLAs and MPs and ministers every other day. It's not possible. But corporators, they cannot hide. They'll be at the end of your street or the next street. That's about it, right? So that's why we need to strengthen the municipal governance and get our mayors and the corporators to get going.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. We don't have a lot more time today, but I do want to thank you for many reasons. One, for an interesting conversation that I personally enjoyed a lot. The second, for creating a sense of optimism and hope, and for showing us all that resilience pays off. All of us are trying to bring about change that we want to see in our lifetimes, and to say that doing it strategically can have you see it in a shorter span of time, or just have change happen by being persistent and continuing to get your voice heard is really a lot of optimism that I'm walking away with today. So thank you so much for taking the time to explain this to us. The same video will also be available on YouTube within the next 24-ish hours. And for anybody who missed it, please feel free to share with friends and reach out to us if there's anything that we can support you in your journey on active citizenship.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone that joined and chimed in and asked questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. See you. Have a good evening.
Bye. You too.